Washington Post Middle East correspondent Louisa Lovelock joins me now by phone from Beirut. Louisa, we're talking about at least 500 people who've been killed in towns just outside Damascus. The Syrian regime, the Russian backers, all insist that this assault is aimed at the rebels. Do you get a sense that this is a new phase in the Syrian civil war?
I think broadly speaking, these past few weeks, we have seen an increase from activity from all the war's major international players. Everyone is scrambling for control to consolidate areas where they have influence. But what's really noticeable about Ghouta, where this latest blitz is happening, is that it's really a place where the civilians don't have an outside power to turn to. They've been besieged for 4 years now, and really the stories we've heard from residents this week are among the worst we've heard during the entire war. Medics are totally overwhelmed. They're working around the clock as hundreds of casualties stream through their doors. And in fact, the area is so under-equipped that doctors say they've been left in a position of having to choose who lives and who dies because they don't have the resources to treat everyone.
Absolutely horrific position to be in, Louisa. You know, the president on Friday called out Russia, Iran, and the Syrian government. He was at a press conference with the Australian Prime Minister. I want to play you what he had to say.
Russia and what Iran and what Syria have done recently is a humanitarian disgrace. I will tell you that. We're there for one reason. We're there to get ISIS and get rid of ISIS and go home. But what those three countries have done to people over the last short period of time is a disgrace.
Do you get a sense of where U.S. policy is headed in Syria?
Well, I think the evolving policy that's come out at the end of the Obama administration and now, which is becoming clear under President Trump, is that when it comes to the U.S., they now have, as President Trump said there, pretty limited goals in this war. They largely involve the country's northeast, where Washington has backed a largely Kurdish force in taking land back from ISIS. So the goals there are to make sure ISIS doesn't come back and to counter Iran's influence. In other parts of the country, however, particularly around Damascus, where this violence we're seeing this week is happening, it's the Syrian government, it's Iran, it's Russia which rule the roost. And while the US is certainly playing a part at the Security Council, they haven't done much in their broader policy to look out for the civilians in this particular part of Syria.
You say that Russia rules a roost here. They're the main backer of Syrian President Bashar Assad. This has been a 7-year conflict here. Does Russia really want to see any sort of ceasefire? What do they want?
I mean, that's not clear tonight. The vote is about to get underway, and while the reasons for the delay aren't entirely clear, one thing that is clear is that it is the Russians who are the obstructive force when it comes to this vote. If they veto today, it will be, I believe, their 10th of the conflict. The veto has often been blamed for, for halting other resolutions which could have diminished the budget. And while Russia doesn't have a particular strategic interest in Ghouta, it's far more of the Syrian government's and Iran's area of influence. They do really want to be in the driving seat when it comes to diplomacy. They want it to stay that way, and what we're seeing play out at the UN Security Council tonight is happening against the backdrop of terrible chaos as everyone battles over this tiny suburb.
Terrible chaos is right, Louisa. Is there anything that gives you hope in this scenario in Syria?
Not much at present. I think that we certainly are coming towards the end of the war, but whether that's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, who knows? I think the only certainty we have right now is that civilians in every part of Syria, between every warring group, will continue to be caught in the middle, and many more will die before this war ends.
Louisa Lovelock coming to us from Beirut. Thank you, Louisa.